Today, we embark on a journey through the life of one of the most fascinating characters in the Old Testament, King Solomon. Solomon was the son of the great King David and his wife Bathsheba, and he became the third king of Israel, reigning during the nation's golden age. But Solomon's story is not just one of success and prosperity. It's also a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of wisdom and the dangers of drifting away from God, even when you seem to have it all. As we explore Solomon's life, we'll discover that he was a man of great wisdom, wealth, and achievement. But he was also flawed and fallible, just like us. His story offers invaluable lessons for our own journeys of faith and leadership. And I believe that by the end of our time together, you'll have some practical insights to apply to your own life. Let's start at the beginning of Solomon's reign. In 1 Kings 1, we witness a dramatic transition of power from David to Solomon. As David lies on his deathbed, his son Adonijah attempts to seize the throne. But through the wise interventions of the prophet Nathan and Solomon's mother Bathsheba, David declares that Solomon will be king, fulfilling the Lord's promise. Shortly after his anointing, Solomon has a life-changing encounter with God. In 1 Kings 3, God appears to Solomon in a dream and offers him anything he wants. Put yourself in Solomon's shoes for a moment. What would you ask for if God made you this offer? Solomon's response is both surprising and revealing. Instead of requesting riches, power, or long life, he asks for wisdom to govern God's people well and to discern between right and wrong. This is a defining moment, and it teaches us a crucial lesson. Solomon prioritized wisdom over all else. He understood that true wisdom comes from reverence for God and obedience to His commands. That's a truth we need to grasp. In our own lives, are we seeking God's wisdom above everything else? Are we more concerned with worldly success or with pleasing God? God is delighted with Solomon's request and grants him unparalleled wisdom, along with riches and honor. We see this wisdom in action in the famous story of the two women claiming the same baby. When Solomon suggests cutting the baby in half, the true mother is revealed by her willingness to give up her child to save his life. Solomon's clever solution demonstrates his God-given insight and ability to discern the truth. As news of Solomon's wisdom spreads, his fame and influence grow. Kings and queens from all over the world come to hear his wisdom, and his kingdom prospers. The lesson for us is clear. Wisdom applied leads to success, justice, and a good reputation. As we seek God's wisdom and put it into practice, it will bear fruit in our lives and in our spheres of influence. At the top of his reign, Solomon embarks on his most ambitious project, building a magnificent temple for the Lord. This was the desire of his father David, but God had revealed that it would be Solomon who would build his house. The construction of the temple is a vast undertaking, involving tens of thousands of workers and the finest materials from around the world. No expense is spared in creating a dwelling place for God. But more than just an impressive building, the temple was a symbol of God's presence among His people. It was a place for worship, sacrifice, prayer, and communion with God. There's a powerful lesson here for us. In our busy, distracted lives, are we making space for God's presence? Are we building our lives around worship, prayer, and devotion to God? That's the foundation for true success and fulfillment. We may not be building physical temples, but we are called to be living temples, places where God's Spirit dwells. After 7 years of construction, the temple is completed, and Solomon gathers all the people for a grand dedication ceremony. At the heart of this event is Solomon's prayer, recorded in 1 Kings 8. It's a beautiful, humble prayer that acknowledges God's faithfulness and asks for His continued blessing. Solomon recognizes that even this magnificent temple cannot contain the fullness of God. He asks that God's eyes would always be open toward this place, and that he would hear the prayers of his people when they face towards this temple. This is a powerful reminder for us. No matter how successful or accomplished we become, we never outgrow our need for God. We must continually rely on his grace, his guidance, and his strength. Like Solomon, we need to be people of prayer, always acknowledging our dependence on God and seeking his face in every situation. Solomon's fame and wealth continue to increase. In a memorable event, the Queen of Sheba, having heard of Solomon's wisdom, comes to test him with hard questions. She is overwhelmed by Solomon's wisdom and the prosperity of his kingdom, declaring that even the fantastic reports she had heard were not half the reality. The Bible tells us that King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. But here's the crucial question. What was the purpose of all this wealth and wisdom? Was it merely for Solomon's own glory and comfort? No. It was meant to glorify God and to point others to him. The same is true for us. Whatever gifts, talents, or resources God has entrusted to us, they are not just for our own benefit. They are tools to be used for God's glory and for the good of others. Are we using our resources selfishly, or are we leveraging them for God's kingdom purposes? But tragically, the story doesn't end there. Despite his God-given wisdom, Solomon makes some disastrous choices that lead to his downfall and the division of the kingdom. 1 Kings 11 reveals that Solomon loved many foreign women. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines, many of them from nations that God had expressly forbidden the Israelites to intermarry with. These women turned Solomon's heart away from the Lord, and he began to worship their gods and idols. This is a sobering lesson about the insidiousness of compromise. Solomon knew better. He had direct revelations from God. He had written extensively about the dangers of foolishness and the importance of staying faithful to the Lord. But he allowed himself to be led astray, one small compromise at a time. It's a slippery slope, and it can happen to any of us if we're not vigilant. God is rightly angered by Solomon's unfaithfulness, and he pronounces judgment. The kingdom will be torn away from Solomon's son, and only one tribe will remain for the sake of David. It's a stark reminder that even those who have been greatly blessed and used by God are not immune to the consequences of disobedience. God's grace is not a license to sin, it's a call to holiness. As Solomon grows old, adversaries begin to rise up against him, both from within and from without. These adversaries, raised up by God as a consequence of Solomon's sin, sow the seeds for the division of the kingdom that will come after his death. It's a sad and sobering end to a reign that had begun with such promise and potential. But even in this, there are vital lessons for us. Our choices have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for those around us and even for future generations. We do not sin in a vacuum. Our actions ripple out and impact others. We must take seriously the long-term effects of our decisions and consider how they align or misalign with God's will. So, what can we learn from the totality of Solomon's life? First and foremost, we see the paramount importance of a life wholly devoted to God. Solomon started well, but he didn't finish well. His divided heart and compromised loyalty led to his downfall. We must guard against anything that would draw our hearts away from singular devotion to God, whether it's relationships, pursuits, or possessions. Jesus said that we cannot serve two masters. We will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. We must choose daily to put God first in every area of our lives. Second, we learn the perils of pride, compromise, and disobedience. Solomon had more wisdom than anyone on earth, yet he still made foolish and sinful choices. We are never too wise, too mature, or too secure to fall. We must stay humble, stay alert, and stay obedient to God's commands. We must be especially vigilant in our areas of strength because that's often where we let our guard down. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Third, we see the eternal value of wisdom that is rooted in the fear of the Lord. True wisdom is not just about knowledge, education, or IQ. It's about a right relationship with God. It's about living in reverence, trust, and obedience to Him. That's the wisdom that leads to life, both now and forever. It's the wisdom that guided Solomon when he was at his best, and it's the wisdom we need to seek daily. Lastly, Solomon's life illustrates the truth that you can have everything in this world: wisdom, wealth, power, fame, pleasure, and still feel empty and unfulfilled if you don't have God at the center. Solomon had it all, but when he drifted from God, it all became meaningless. As he writes in Ecclesiastes, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." Only in God do we find true meaning, purpose, and satisfaction. As we conclude, I want to challenge you to learn from both the triumphs and the tragedies of Solomon's life. His story is a powerful reminder that no amount of worldly success can compensate for a life that is not right with God. But it's also a testament to the grace and faithfulness of God. Despite Solomon's failures, God did not abandon him or his people. He continued to work out his plan of redemption, ultimately leading to the coming of Jesus Christ, the true wisdom of God. The same is true for us. No matter where we've been or what we've done, God's grace is greater. He calls us to return to Him, to seek His wisdom, and to live for His glory. He invites us into a life of purpose, meaning, and eternal impact. So let's heed the lessons of Solomon's life. Let's pursue wisdom, not just for our own sake, but for the glory of God and the good of others. Let's anchor our lives in devotion to God, resisting the pull of compromise and disobedience. And let's leave a legacy not just of earthly success, but of faithfulness to God. May we, like Solomon in his best moments, be people who seek God's face, who live in His wisdom, and who use all that we have for His glory. That's the path to a life well lived, a life that makes an eternal difference. As we conclude, I invite you to reflect on your own life. Where do you need to seek God's wisdom? Where do you need to guard against compromise? How can you use your gifts and resources for God's glory? What steps can you take today to put God first in every area of your life? Pray and ask God for the grace to live wisely and faithfully, for His glory and for the good of the world He loves. May we learn from Solomon's story and write a different ending to our own, an ending marked by faithfulness, devotion, and unwavering love for God.